Jacques, start the engine! Jacques, start the engine! Yeah, we've got a whole mess of Intersphere surrounds this time. In what was almost certainly a poker game gone wrong, we were winning, the clan have found themselves playing the chase scenario against a whole gaggle of mercenary troops led by the Dawn and Hunter himself. For this scenario, we will be fielding the usual light list that I would advocate for most clan players taking on the Intersphere. Now, playing this scenario is actually suggested by a viewer of the Batreps, and I was inclined to try it because I'd been a long time since I last checked it, and I thought then it was kind of a little unfair as we randomly determined the map sheets. I was running a Capellan conventional company, and two of the map sheets that we rolled out were heavy wood, so, I mean, the game was kind of over right then and there. So here we are again, blitzing across the board as fast as I can. I am going to start lighting up the ground around me using the direct energy weapons and the flamer off of the Puma to start setting fires. We have a lot of open space over there to clear across the ground, and we need as much cover as humanly possible. And as the first turn comes to the close, you can see the Surat horde coming across the board, much like a very great scene from a certain Indiana Jones movie. We are going to be firing it across the board as fast as we can to get to the dropship and get off of this otherwise uninhabitable rock. Because who would want to live here? Seriously. I mean, look at all those free birth monsters. I mean, they're just breeding. It's just disgusting. Flinging their DNA everywhere. You'll note that this list actually contains a lot of first-line mechs. As you can see from deployment, I have actually spread myself in such a way that I'm going to take advantage of that break between the two buildings to run as many mechs through as possible, marked right here. Now, the Grendel and the Thor actually have jump jets, so they have a little bit more room to maneuver in terms of approach, so they're going to head right through the city center. Unfortunately, though fast for what it is, the 585 Thor is definitely the weakest link of our unit. Already you can see that its movement is being dictated by the horde of Intersphere units that are coming in across the board. We are trying to make sure that it's going to be able to at least fight for itself just a little, but I need to put as much attention as possible in just making it go fast, go anywhere but here. And as it does so, the Cudgel emerges off the side of the board and moves at a terrifying pace, picking up through the smoke and making its beady-eyed steel gaze against the Thor. A lot of long-range pot shots are made, the Intersphere having the raw end of it being both at long range and having to run. This is probably the closest they'll ever get with a vast majority of their units. While the Thor manages to take quite a few shots into its rear arc, there really is no place for it to go. I bump the number 3 building there, and then I end up orientating it the wrong way, and I set up a couple more fires wherever I can, hoping to cover the exit route that I'm going to be taking. This signature Draconis Combine unit is not fast enough to escape the things that can kill it, but it hits harder than it should for its weight class. Can you guess what it is? That's right, it's the Panther! Yeah, I'm not a really big fan of this trooper mech, but it definitely has its role in some lists. You can actually make a kind of hilarious case for why they have the Panther and the Grand Dragon, but lack a whole lot of medium units like every other faction would have. As we continue moving forward, the Jade Falcon are desperate to get on the other side of the smokescreen and the other side of those buildings while the Intersphere are pushing up as fast as they can. I decide to go ahead, after being shot in the back last turn, try to protect the Thor's back by jumping forward into the trees forward so that I can twist himself around, but then I didn't really think it through. He still puts his back towards the Cudgel that immediately moves up right behind him. I'm not entirely sure what I was thinking. I clearly did not think it all the way through. He should have just ran forward, but even then, the Cudgel would still be able to keep up with him. The road ends up being a slight inconvenience as we try to very carefully maneuver around it so we're not taking a PSR. He decides to, that is the Dawn, moves forward with the Cicada, clearing around some heavy trees on a side that I hadn't considered approaching, and I decide, you know what, this is lame. I am clearly going to outrun him. The Thor is getting left behind, but I have no intention of going back and saving him because I would have to take on the entire Inner Sphere force by itself. The best I can hope for is the clan pilot does the honorable thing and fights to the death. He won't, though. He's got things to do and places to be. So I decided to go ahead and double down on what was otherwise going to be kind of a lousy match, and I send the Vixen over there to engage the Cicada, running in behind him to try to buy a little bit of time. And I decided, you know what, let's double down on that. Let's send the Fire Falcon over there, too. And he slips on the pavement, making a PSR. He slides one hex forward, crashes into the ground. Grateful he didn't crash into the building. But for a 25-ton mech, that was still pretty devastating and completely unnecessary for what was otherwise just a little bit of bloodlust. Thor takes it like a champ, having to get the raw end of nearly a lance and a half worth of stuff, while a vast majority of more firepower tries flinging at the Vixen that decided to get danger close to the rest of the Inner Sphere forces. The Vixen, in return, does absolutely nothing to the Cicada that he happened to chase down. Kind of a bummer. The Fire Falcon gets up, decides to run away. The Puma, with his elemental still firmly attached, still guns the engine as fast as he can, braving not to fire the 2 PPCs, instead just firing 1 PPC, because otherwise he's going to slow down. And the only thing that's keeping him alive is the fact that he's so much faster than everyone else. Vixen decides to double down on leaving and decides not to engage the Cicada again as the Cicada tries to initiative sync a little bit further behind while an assassin begins moving up to double up on all the threat that he can pose. The Grendel leaps into the center of the town, trying to provide a little bit of covering fire for the Thor to try to pick off anything that tries to come its way, but it's kind of all for naught. 1 turn's worth of fire off of a medium mech such as itself isn't really going to do anything, so he leaps away this turn, trying to find a little bit more cover to take on the Cicada that has decided to try to chew on the Fire Falcon that is otherwise somewhat damaged and has taken a couple shots. It doesn't have a lot of armor. They do have quite the potential to put it out of action. Thor races forward under the pretense that if it gets 1 more turn, it's going to be able to jump across that water in front of it. And the Cudgel doesn't have any jump jets, so he's going to buy himself a little bit of time. But it means taking another turn worth of physical attacks with that mace and claw and just about every other weapon the Cudgel has into the back. And it's looking pretty grim. The Thor's got all kinds of damage. It's almost missing its right arm at this point. The back armor is nothing but a faint veneer of what it used to be as well. Cicada chases down the Fire Falcon, fires its snub-nosed PPC, connects, manages to hit the leg, takes the armor off, goes for a crit, and causes a foot actuator failure. Oh, that's going to be a problem. Slowed down, but not denied. The Fire Falcon is going to continue running away as fast as it can, while the Cicada takes the raw end of it from nearly a lance's worth of clan mechs. Not quite a star, but it's, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans. Though receiving 2 sets of PSRs for the effort, the Fire Falcon brushes it off, continuing on, as though nothing had ever happened. Well, minus the stubby foot actuator, of course. Cudgel continues to rip apart the Thor. At this point, he's just reaching his claw in there and just removing parts. Because there's no armor to stop him, he's just reaching in there, grabbing an actuator, heat sinks, and all kinds of garbage, and just leaving them on the floor. But the Thor pilot, leader as he is undenied, having to take quite a few PSRs. I think at this point it was like a +8 if he's a stacking PSR. And he just like, it's nothing. I mean, the mech is in pieces, and he's been firing his Ultra AC-20 every turn, double rate, trying to do something, but he's hit nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I can't blame him. The pilot's probably way too concerned with actually, living. Fire Falcon continues to make a speedy gimp across the board, hobbling along as fast as he can, while the Puma races up to the Cicada that is trying to destroy him with the Elementals still in tow. The Elementals take one look over into the pilot's cockpit, makes crude gestures with their claws and machine guns, but otherwise are kind of ineffective at this point, while the rest of the clan forces begin swinging onto the Cicada, trying to pull it off. If there's going to be a kill, they're probably going to get it on that Fire Falcon, and we gotta prevent that. Thor leaps across the water to get away from the Cudgel. Cudgel has been running his mask system out and is just in all kinds of trouble, and he can't quite make it across the water between that and the heat problems that he is suffering from. Though, as I mentioned the mask, this is some serious refrigerator logic as I'm recording this. It also had triple strength Myanmar, and I'm going to have to ask him about that. I don't think he could have done that because it's referencing two different versions of the Cudgel. Go figure. I mean, it happens. Cicada gets absolutely devastated by the combined fire of 4 different mechs doing everything that they can to try to take it down. They manage to take one of the legs off, pushing the Cicada into the dirt. The pilot is otherwise just fine. Furious that he got slowed down, but otherwise defiant and still quite capable of shooting at anything and everything that would be in his forward arc. But as the edge of the board is right at the bottom of the camera, it's not really going to get much of a shot at anything. It's just up to the Thor to see if he can live through the rest of it as his buddies are racing across the board, probably to the dismay of the poor Thor. But that's just how this scenario is scored. There is no way that I would be able to engage the inner sphere and win by destroying his units. I mean, I think I'm an okay player, but I'm not going to win a 2v1 engagement when I don't have something hilariously overpowered on my side. So the Thor is just going to have to bite it for the team. Now, if I was particularly cheeky, I would just send the Thor back there to engage mano a mano with as many units as possible. It might have been okay in any other scenario, but considering that he would be just taking on a lot more than what he normally would. I mean, in another engagement, if his turning back and engaging would have tied up a lance or two worth of stuff and I needed them to be engaged, that would have been worthwhile. But as it is, the rest of the clan units are just so much faster than what he's got. So the Inner Sphere mercenaries are just out of luck. Cicada goes down, obviously, having lost a leg. That is difficult to keep a mech walking, and we're just going to walk off. There's nothing they can do to stop us at this point. As the rest of the clan forces file off the table, it's just left to see if the Thor is going to be able to live to see another day. At this point, it has lost both arms, it has no back armor, it is ejecting all the ammo that it can, and it doesn't matter if it's in forced withdrawal at this point because, I mean, all it has is an Streak SRM-6 to defend itself, so he runs away as far as he can to try to get away from the Cudgel. I thought that they were going to move the Cudgel forward and some of these other mechs forward just to do some movement blocking, and again, the Cudgel has a lot of problems with its heat load right now because it just keeps spamming all the medium lasers that he was firing, and it can't stay up with it. But by moving over to one side of the board, all I'm doing is engaging the Legacy and all the other skirmishing units that otherwise didn't have anything else to shoot, as the Dragon, Grand Dragon, Dragonfire, Jenner, and all kinds of nonsense over there start shooting at him. And again, like our favorite scene from RoboCop, he doesn't quite live through it, taking shots everywhere. He ends up falling over, but this is where we call the game. There really is no reason to keep playing. I mean, he's just going to get beat on for the next few turns. We're just filling in dots, so we go ahead and call it when he falls over. Technically, he's not dead. I don't even think when we ended he was technically in forced withdrawal either. So, you know, more props to him. We thought that he probably just ejected from the mech and decided to try to fist fight whoever decided to get out of their mech, but, you know, that's beyond the scope of this game. Maybe in a time of war. We called it a kill for their team. That left the scenario scored 10-3 for a clan victory. If you can call running off the board a victory. But I will take it. This has been an Ouchies Batrep, and thanks for watching. And for the record, I still think that scenario is kind of broken. There's a lot to be said that you have to kind of you know, thumb through force composition beforehand and not just let anything happen. Otherwise, you get situations like this where the clan recon lance just kind of ran away. But then, if it was any slower, you would have just been overwhelmed. It's a tough call.
Yeah, ours were horrible, but I'd heard they.
Yeah, uses the building as a backstop, like.
Oh, that was nothing. That was nothing but the children of the clan orphanage. Good job there.
It even has
We raised the clan orphanage in a garage.
Yep.
I was gonna say it has clan colors on the
That's
garage
probably
doors.
what they're used to. Let's be honest.
It had nothing to do with the fact that that was the color that I happened to have open at the time.
Hey man, I don't make the rules.
Look, you're not the guy that said the clans have to be raised in a garage.
That's what they're used to, man. I'm just
Probably.
throwing that out there.
They have to botch all for lunch. But I want some more porridge. Not until you beat up Timmy.
Circle of evils.
Not until you beat up Timmy.
Well, that guy's getting away.